Hey everyone, it's Ariana from the blog And Here We Are, and it is Q&A Wednesday. This is the second episode of a new video segment I'm doing each week to answer some of the questions you've been asking me. So before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your great interactions last week. I wasn't totally sure about the idea of doing a video. I felt a little weird about it. But after such a great response and so many good conversations, it was just a great experience. So I'd like to keep doing it. So thank you for being awesome and for showing up to talk to me and being so thoughtful in the things that you choose to write in the comments. So I appreciate you. Today, I've been looking through the questions I've gotten, and so many of them have to do with food, and they're all sorts of different questions about food. So I thought that maybe today I could just talk about the way my family eats, how we got here, and then just kind of maybe the more practical side. We'll see where it goes. So for a little bit of background. When I started cooking as an adult, I was vegan for about 5 years, a full committed 5 years of veganism. So, and the reason I did that was I was really concerned about my health. And in the late 90s, when I kind of graduated from high school and came to the US to go to college, that was kind of the prevailing information out there that if you wanted to be super healthy, then you couldn't eat any animal products. And I did it like wholeheartedly, super committed. And I wasn't one of those vegetarians that just doesn't eat meat. I was the kind that was actively trying to get as much nutrition as I possibly could, never eating junk food, not eating sugar, making most of my food myself and all that stuff, working really, really hard at it. And despite all of that commitment and hard work, my health really suffered. And I gave myself hypothyroidism and I gained a lot of weight and just a bunch of different things were going on. I was sick all the time. So when I started seeing a nutritionist, she said, you really have to start eating at least fish. And it seemed like the more animal proteins I got into my system, the better I felt. And so, it was kind of a gradual progression to including everything. And now I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. If you've been around my blog, you know that I really love meat. And I am really a strong advocate for supporting the farmers who are raising meat sustainably, who are ethical and compassionate and committed to giving animals a good life before they're harvested for their meat. And I think it's really important that there are lots of people out there who have strong ethics, that we actually support these farmers rather than completely giving up meat. I feel like it's really important that we create a demand for well-raised meat and other animal products. So anyway, that's kind of that bit of how I started and how I started eating meat. And when we were in Germany, I came across a book called The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson of Mark's Daily Apple. And I was really fascinated, and I just did so much reading and decided that I wanted to try how I would feel if I gave up grains and legumes, and talked Jeff into it. And so then both of us decided to try it. And I think, especially Jeff thought it would be kind of miserable or something because he had had bad experiences with having to give up certain foods in the past. But what happened is that we both felt awesome. We didn't really crave anything. We didn't miss bread or anything like that. And the reason why I had originally wanted to do that is because my daughter had this list of things that she was allergic to. She was allergic to gluten and to certain, soy and a few different things that were kind of in everything. And then Jeff had this separate list, and he's allergic to corn. and peanuts and some other things. And I have an autoimmune condition, and I tend to eat more low carb, not real starchy. So when I was cooking, when we first got there, it was like, for 3 different sets of dietary needs. So for us, doing the paleo primal thing compared to what I had been doing was so easy. Just taking out the breads and things like pasta. Like, we didn't even eat much of that anyway. And adding more vegetables, which I love because of my vegetarian background. And then just eating, pretty normal portions of meat, but just instead of those grains, putting in more vegetables. So what happened is that I lost like 25 pounds, and started sleeping really well, and most of my headaches went away. And some similar things happened for Jeff. He slimmed down a little bit, but the main thing that we both noticed was that we felt so happy. And it was like a weird feeling to have like this sort of chemical homeostasis inside of our bodies where we just felt like cheerful, like you feel like whistling, you're just happy. So I'm definitely not one of those people that's going to go around and be really evangelical about it, like, have you heard the news about paleo? And I don't think that it's something that everyone needs to do. I think most people could probably feel better if they did it, but everyone's body's different, and I don't think that there's one thing that works for everyone. The only thing I would say is, make sure the food you're eating is actually food and not just a bunch of junk, not a bunch of chemicals and stabilizers and preservatives. That's a problem for me. But here's the thing about food. Food is supposed to be like this really joyful, stress relieving element in our lives. It's supposed to nourish us, not just on a chemical level. It's supposed to nourish our spirits. It's supposed to nourish our souls. It's supposed to bring community together. It should be a source of beauty and, a sensual experience of all the flavors and textures. And something that I have just been concerned about after kind of being around the paleo community and most communities that are oriented around a certain way of eating is it's really sad, because I feel like there's a lot of joy lost, and a lot of legalism comes in, and a lot of rules, and a lot of fear and anxiety, and then the guilt. All of that to me is just tragic. It really, really bothers me. And I think, if you find out that there are certain foods that make you feel poorly, you should definitely eliminate those foods. But I would never say that you should cut out a bunch of foods out of principle. I think that's a terrible idea. I think we should eat what makes us feel great, and we should be able to sit down at the table and just find joy there, and find nourishment and community. And so even though we've had a great experience with doing the grain-free thing, and I feel that I've learned a lot of ways that food can help me, or things that I eat really disagree with me or my family members, I wouldn't go out and say that everyone, needs to eat like we do. Not at all. I think you should definitely be mindful about it, and take the time and make the space in your life to pay attention to how food makes you feel. I think elimination diets can be great because it's just important information about you and your body that can really serve you and help you heal if you have some issues. But other than that, I can't just sit here and say everyone should eat grain-free. That's just not something I think is my job to do. I think what I do want to say is everyone should sit down, eat really good food, and enjoy their food and enjoy the people around them, and to me that is really the most important thing. So a few people asked if we've found other people, because I know a lot of you do follow my blog because of the paleo recipes, and so there have been questions about whether we find people around here who eat like us. No, not really. I don't know. Well, we know one family that kind of eats paleo, because we sort of give them the information about it, and so they do. But other than that, I'd say no, and I'd say that the sort of prevailing food dogma over here is still that fats are bad, and things like salt. There are a lot of restrictions related to things like fat and salt, kind of like in the U.S. and maybe just a few years behind. There just doesn't seem to be much of a conversation about sort of the new information about cholesterol and saturated fats being healthy and things like that. However, it's a lot easier here for me to find things like raw milk, and grass-fed, pastured meats, things like that. Those are a lot easier to come by. We don't do a lot of raw milk because it's just not something that sets that well with any of us. So maybe we have some residual sort of dairy intolerances. But I buy it every once in a while. I definitely want to support the producers, and I try it, and it can be good, but it's not always great. But we do better with things like cream, so I like to buy raw cream and culture it and things like that. So getting the food is pretty easy. I mean, the quality standards for food here is definitely higher than in the US. So there is that feeling of, I kind of trust that the foods that I do buy in a supermarket are probably higher quality than the regular foods I would buy in a supermarket in the US. That said, we don't buy a ton of food at the supermarket. We go to our local ethical butcher who has pastured meats for us, and we go to farms, and we go to our farmers market. We have a twice-a-week farmers market here, but it's really not a farmers market in the sense that you would have one in the U.S. Like, people are selling a lot of imported produce, and a lot of it, the quality is not great. So we have to kind of pick out the vendors that we want to support and ask some questions, find out what was raised here, because there's some real gaps in the growing season. It seems like all but probably one stall there. All but one stall imports. So there's only one stall who does not add imported produce to what they're offering. We have one organic stand. He's the one that doesn't import, and he comes only once a week. And the prices are much higher for sure. I always stop by and buy stuff from him, but it definitely is something that people have to really want in order to pay those higher prices. So in terms of organics, our major grocery stores do carry organics, and I think that's great. I kind of want to know more, like, was it local? How long ago was it picked? What was the process to bring it here? So I tend to try to buy local as much as I can, and sometimes often I buy local instead of organic, and just kind of watch out for the dirty dozen, clean 15, all those things. So that's how we get our food. I have a post that I'll link in the bottom about, what we buy in a week, what we turn all those groceries into, how we get away with rarely going to the grocery store ourselves. And then I have a post too about our local market here in Barrie. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else you might want to know. We love eating here, actually. It's a great place to shop for food, as I talked about in the last video last week. It's a really nice place to shop for food, and we have a little health food store locally that is also an international store. So there's actually a lot of Filipinos here working in the hospital. And so if there's any sort of Filipino ingredients I want, or Asian ingredients, I can go there for them. They have really extensive inventory, and lots of health foods. So, things like date syrup or coconut or anything like that I might want, I can get locally. So that is great, especially for such a small town. So if you have any more questions about, how we do our food, I love talking about food. Maybe I'll have to do another segment if I get a lot of questions, but I'm happy to also answer them in the comments. And I'd also love to hear your experience, maybe how you came to how you eat now, and kind of your experience if you were vegetarian or paleo or whatever it is. I'd love to talk about it. So thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear your comments below. And until next week, bye.